I think regardless of what you read, depending on the sources, etc., I think it's quite clear and obvious that Julen Lopetegui's days at West Ham now are numbered. They have been for ages, let's be honest. It's just West Ham are doing this typical halfway house indecisiveness of keep giving them a couple more games. And it just feels like a constant delay to making a decision. But I do feel that it's starting to shift a little bit now. And that's because of the situation with Graham Potter. Now, as far as we understand it, West Ham have held discussions with Graham Potter for a while now. They've been going on for a little while. And the fact is that the club have effectively agreed a deal with him because Potter was very reluctant originally for doing a short-term contract with the view of then earning a longer-term deal at West Ham. He was a little bit reluctant with that and would rather a long-term deal. Now, as we understand it, Potter then got back in touch with the club and said, actually, I've changed my mind. I'm open to doing a short-term deal to prove that I'm the right guy for this football club, which I like. I really like that because we've actually been through that before. We've done this with David Moyes and it worked really well. That he took on a short-term deal, was successful, and then was offered a longer-term contract. So I've got absolutely no problem with that. And if anything, I like the fact that Graham Potter has agreed to that, okay? The problem we've got is that we've got an owner for whatever reason. Well, when I say for whatever reason, we know what the reason is. It's money. Let's be honest. It's compensation. There's talks that it could be affecting PSR and that could be the driving force. But I'm struggling to believe it's a PSR thing. I think it's just purely down to the fact they don't really want to spend money and would rather leave it. Would basically rather have Lopetegui stay put for the rest of the season. But the reality is we're in danger of going into a relegation battle here under Lopetegui because this guy is proving time and time again, he is just not cut out for this job. Nowhere near. He's proven to be a really incompetent head coach and a terrible appointment. Let's get it straight. And the club are very aware of it. The problem we've got now is that Graham Potter's losing interest. And I totally understand that. Graham Potter would have been very aware that West Ham have effectively, in terms of the board, he's losing support now from the board level. He'd be very aware of that. We were under the understanding that before we went to the Liverpool game, that if we were to get hammered and humiliated, it was likely he was going to get let go. I'm sorry, how is 5-0 at home not a humiliation? I'm sick of the fact that we seem to be just accepting it as well as a club. So, well, they're top of the league. That's what we expect. I'm sorry, you can't accept a 5-0 hammering at home and just get outclassed all over the pitch for 90 minutes. It can't be acceptable. This guy's got to go. We do understand it, though, that Karen Brady is a huge admirer of Potter. There's big connections there, and she's putting a lot of pressure on Sullivan to make a decision. So I do think there's going to be a decision made. My gut feeling is that if we get an absolute hammering against Man City, which I expect we will, to be honest, even regardless of how well they're playing at the moment, I still think they're going to dismantle West Ham quite comfortably. That could spell the end for Lopetegui. But again, it's could, isn't it? Because we keep hearing that it's going to be the end, and then it's another game. I know there's talk about that they'll give him the Aston Villa game as well. But again, what is the point? What is the point when you've made up the decision on this guy? I personally, I don't look at Graham Potter and think, wow, this is the Lord and Saviour. This is the only option we have. I'm very confident that he will do a better job than Lopetegui. I genuinely think there's a lot of managers that will do a better job than Lopetegui. And I think that if you look at his credentials, Potter, forgetting the Chelsea stint, I think that was a tough gig for anyone. It was chaos when he went there, all these players being signed. It was all a bit of a mess. But I think if you look at his track record, obviously very well at Brighton and then previously as well, Swansea and whatever, he's done very, very well his career. I think he would be a pretty decent fit at West Ham. I don't think I'm a little bit concerned about his personality, and what I mean by that is dealing with Sullivan, dealing with the hierarchy at West Ham. I don't think it's easy. Dealing with Tim Steidten, I think it's difficult. I think that's the issue he's walking into, which is why I actually think that there's a huge opportunity here for David Sullivan and West Ham when it comes to Potter. Not only have we got him available, not only is he keen on the job and happy to do a short-term stint as well. He's not expecting a huge contract to come straight in. He's happy to take a 6-month deal to prove his worth. So I think it ticks lots of boxes. But I actually do think as well the fact that Dan Ashworth is available now previously director of football at Brighton, working with Potter. I think there's a real opportunity there for West Ham. I really do. We already know that there's strained relations between Sullivan and Steidton. There's a lot of doubt now about him, which I think is harsh a little bit. I mean, I know I've called out Steidton a bit, but I do think there's a part of me that feels a little bit harsh. He hasn't been here for that long. He's only had one window. And let's be honest, it hasn't been that horrendous. It's not as if we bought terrible players across the board. There's a few mistakes in there, don't get me wrong. Fulkrug's a bad one. Guilherme's questionable. There's a few signings in there that you're going, what's that all about? But overall, it's not been too bad. But if there's an issue there, then this is a great opportunity for West Ham to really clean house here. Get rid of Lopetegui, do the same with Steidton, and bring in Ashworth. I just think it's a suggestion. I'm not saying that's definitely what we should be doing, but I think there's an opportunity there for West Ham. If they're looking to adopt that Brighton model and say, we want what happened at Brighton to happen at West Ham, then why don't we start looking at that? Why don't we start exploring that? I think as well as with Potter, you're going to have a head coach that's going to lean a lot on the academy. I think we'll promote the younger players from within, which I don't think we're getting that much of from Lopetegui. I appreciate that we've had Ollie Scholes recently had some appearances, but ultimately, let's be honest, it's been few and far between at this football club for a long time. We're getting our academy boys through. I don't know what the hold-up is now. I just feel like David Sullivan is basically risking this whole season, because as much as we don't want to, or I certainly don't feel like I want to talk about European football, I feel like it's just not worth having a proper conversation about it at the moment, just because of how bad we have been this season. It's difficult to sort of muster up that kind of, yeah, you never know, we're going to get you. Do you know what I mean? I'm struggling with that. There can be no denying that it's still within our grasp. If West Ham want to rescue this season, it's there for rescuing. I'm just going to put up the table now. I should have done this actually before I did the video. But you look at the league table, right? And West Ham are currently sitting in 13th place. Now, 8th spot will be Europa Conference League this season. I'm pretty sure of that because of the standings and where we're doing as the UK, or sorry, England are doing in UEFA competition season. It will go down to 8th. Now, you look at that. You've only got, what's that, 2? You got 6 points. Do you know what I mean? You've got 6 points between us and 8th. I mean, that's not unsalvageable. 6 points between us and European football at this stage of the halfway point. If West Ham get rid of this useless, terrible head coach in Lopetegui and bring in Graham Potter and bring in a couple of extra players just to give us a little bit of a bit of a lift, bring in what we need in terms of our midfield and in terms of a striker, this is salvageable. This season is salvageable. And David Sullivan needs to act now. Can't keep risking this. We can't keep kicking this can down the road and risk losing Graham Potter. And I know, as I say, I want to make it really clear, I'm not suggesting that Graham Potter's the only manager out there. I'm just talking about someone that's available, that ticks lots of boxes and has agreed to come to West Ham. I have firm confidence that if we made a change and brought in Graham Potter, we would do better under him than we would Lopetegui. For a start, I feel like the relationships with the players would improve massively. I get the impression he comes across quite likeable, someone that I just generally think he'd be a lot easier to get on with. And let's be honest, communication as well. At least you can bloody understand the guy. I mean, I know it sounds a bit nasty, but I can't understand a word that Lopetegui says half the time. I really don't. I listen to his press conferences and I'm always left baffled. I just continually wind it back. If he hasn't got subtitles, I don't know what he's saying half the time. I'm thinking, what is he saying? It's a massive month for this football club. This is a massive month to save our season. We've got a lot of business to do. West Ham have got to pull their finger out and get it right in the market, but they've got to get this managerial appointment right. And the time is now. There's no more. David Sullivan can't keep kicking this can, which unfortunately he appears to be doing. But I think the pressure is now ramping up behind the scenes. There's clearly a lot of support in the board level to get rid of Lopetegui. They've had enough. And I have, as you well know, and I'm sure you feel the same. Well, I know a lot of people do. I read the comments and respond as many as I can. And the general consensus is that people want Lopetegui gone. And usually as well, when you talk about getting rid of managers, and when you talked about David Moyes at times, it was very split, very 50-50. A lot of people were kind of supporting Moyes, a lot of people weren't. Or towards the end, there was a bit more Moyes out, but ultimately it was very, very divided. And even towards the end, there was still a lot of people that were still supporting David Moyes. I better get anything from Lopetegui. I've had that for a long time. Everyone feels the same. He's proven to be so incompetent. It's a massive, massive month for us as a football club. And our owner has got to stop this dilly-dallying and desperation. I don't know why he's so reluctant to make this decision. I don't know why there's apart from money aside, there should be no loyalty towards Lopetegui. He's done absolutely nothing for West Ham. He's been here 5 minutes. Well, I say 5 minutes, 7 months, and he's achieved nothing. You know what I mean? They genuinely achieved nothing. You wouldn't come out of this and go, yeah, but this has improved. Nothing's improved. I don't care what anyone says. I don't watch any part of West Ham now and think, God, this guy's improved this. There's no players that have improved. Not one. I've not seen any player that looks any better under Lopetegui. In fact, I would say the opposite. They look worse. And the fact we've got this Jared Bowen injury now only adds to this woe. It's a real, real concern. So yeah, the pressure is now on the club to make a decision and get David Moyes to get Graham Potter in. I feel like there's a big chance that will happen after Saturday. Obviously, we've got Man City. We're going to do a preview of that game tomorrow. We'll talk about more then, and we'll talk about more about transfer targets as well as they start to get a bit more clear of what we're going to be doing. Which is that's causing us issues, isn't it? Because we don't even know who the head coach is going to be. How can you plan around the January transfer window? This is all on David Sullivan. And he's got to put his finger out, because I'll tell you what, if he doesn't, then we're in real danger of missing out on Graham Potter, and then we're suddenly back to square one.